Welcome to HFY Galaxy Tales. Like this video and subscribe the channel for more HFY stories. Look, I need you to understand something right from the start. When the Galactic Council sent me to observe humanity, I thought it was a punishment. 300 cycles of stellar cartography, and they stick me on some backwater planet to watch primates figure out faster-than-light travel. Spoiler alert, they hadn't even colonized their own moon properly yet. My name is Vorthan. I'm a Keltharian, which means I've got 4 eyes, perfect memory, and absolutely zero patience for inefficiency. We're the ones who catalog everything, every species, every discovery, every stupid little war that breaks out over resources or territory or whatever organic beings decide is worth dying for this week. Earth was supposed to be simple. Document their progress, file reports every solar rotation, avoid contact. Standard observation protocol. Boring. Safe. The kind of assignment you give someone when you want them to fade into irrelevance. I set up my monitoring station in what the humans called Nevada. Desert. Flat. Empty. Perfect for staying invisible. The cloaking field worked beautifully, not that these primitives would have noticed anyway. They were too busy arguing with each other on their primitive information networks about things that wouldn't matter in 100 years. Day 1, I logged my first report. Species shows promise in theoretical physics but lacks cohesion. Recommend continued observation for another 50 cycles before reassessment. Day 30, I was ready to request a transfer. These humans. They were everywhere, doing everything, and none of it made sense. They'd spend decades building something useful, then blow it up because 2 groups couldn't agree on invisible lines they'd drawn on maps. They'd discover something brilliant, then hide it from each other. They'd save a dying animal with expensive medicine, then eat other animals for lunch without blinking. Contradictions wrapped in skin suits, walking around pretending they had it all figured out. But then I noticed something weird. There was this one human. Male. Average height for their species, maybe a bit taller. Brown hair that he never seemed to comb properly. He worked at some technological development facility about 40 kilometers from my station. Nothing special. Just another researcher among thousands. His name was Marcus Webb. I only noticed him because he kept showing up in my peripheral data sweeps. Not doing anything important. Just, there. In the background of important meetings. Walking past crucial conversations. Standing in the corner of laboratories where breakthroughs happened. Always there. Never central. Background noise in a species full of background noise. Then things started getting interesting. The Vrakken showed up. Now, if you don't know about the Vrakken, congratulations on living a blessed life. These psychopaths make most predatory species look like domestic pets. They're conquerors, scavengers, and they absolutely love finding developing species right before they hit spacefaring status. Easiest targets in the galaxy. Just swoop in, take whatever technology exists, enslave whoever's useful, and strip mine the rest. They'd done it to 47 worlds in the last 1,000 cycles alone. Earth was next on their list. I detected their scout ships 3 weeks before official contact. My equipment was significantly better than anything the humans had, which wasn't saying much considering their best detection systems were held together with optimism and duct tape. Whatever that is. Protocol said I should report this to the Council and wait for instructions. Protocol also said I shouldn't interfere with developing species under any circumstances. The Council had rules. Lots of rules. Most of them designed to avoid the kind of mess that happens when advanced civilizations play favorites with primitive ones. But here's the thing about rules. They're written by beings who don't have to watch an entire species get wiped out while filing paperwork. I broke protocol. Sue me. I sent an anonymous transmission to every major government on Earth. Simple message, hostile contact imminent. Prepare defenses. You have 21 days. The reaction was exactly what you'd expect from humans. Half of them thought it was a hoax. The other half couldn't agree on what to do about it. Some wanted to prepare weapons. Others wanted to prepare welcome parties. A few wanted to pretend nothing was happening and hope it went away. Humans are special like that. But then something changed. Marcus Webb called a meeting. Not officially. The guy was mid-level at best, no authority to call anything. But he sent messages to people who sent messages to other people, and suddenly there was this gathering of scientists, military personnel, and government officials happening in a bunker in Colorado. I tapped into their communications. Purely for observation purposes. Marcus stood in front of maybe 200 humans, looking uncomfortable in a suit that didn't fit him properly. He cleared his throat. Once. Twice. Someone coughed in the back. Right, he said. So. We're probably all going to die. Great opening. Really inspiring. But, he continued, we don't have to die stupid. He pulled up a holographic display. Crude by galactic standards, but functional. It showed the transmission I'd sent, along with analysis he'd apparently been running for weeks. This message is real, Marcus said. The math checks out. The origin point is consistent with deep space monitoring. Whoever sent this knows things we don't, which means we should probably listen. Someone in the military uniform stood up. Lots of medals on his chest. And what exactly do you propose we do, Mr. Webb? Build a space army in 3 weeks. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. More like the smile you give when you're about to suggest something insane. No, he said. We build a trap. The room exploded into arguments. Impossible. Ridiculous. They didn't have the resources, the time, the technology. Everything Marcus was suggesting required capabilities they wouldn't have for decades. But Marcus kept talking. And slowly, people started listening. He had plans. Detailed plans. Plans that seemed to account for things he shouldn't have known about. Vrakken ship configurations. Typical attack patterns. Weaknesses in their shielding frequencies. I checked my records. There was no way he should have had access to that information. I certainly hadn't included it in my transmission. The Vrakken hadn't even arrived yet. So how did Marcus Webb know? I started digging into his background. Not just recent history, the stuff anyone could access. I pulled everything. Birth records. Education. Employment. Medical files. Social connections. Every digital footprint he'd ever made. And I found nothing. Nothing unusual. Average student. Average career. No special training. No secret government clearance. No hidden genius level achievements. Just a regular human who somehow knew things he absolutely should not know. The Vrakken arrived exactly on schedule. 3 warships. Standard configuration. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel right at the edge of Earth's solar system and began their approach. I monitored their communications. Typical Vrakken arrogance. They weren't even being subtle about their intentions. Full conquest. Resource extraction. Population assessment for labor potential. They expected this to take maybe 6 hours total. Earth's governments, to their credit, had actually listened to Marcus. Not completely. Not all of them. But enough. They'd positioned satellites in specific orbital patterns. Redirected energy from power grids into experimental weapon systems. Evacuated major population centers near the predicted landing zones. It wouldn't be enough. I knew that. The Vrakken had done this too many times. Humans were resourceful, sure, but resourceful doesn't mean much when the other side has weapons that can crack continents. The Vrakken commander broadcast his demands. Standard stuff. Surrender immediately. Submit to processing. Resistance would be met with overwhelming force. Marcus was in that same bunker in Colorado. I watched him through their security feeds. He sat at a console, fingers moving across controls, absolutely calm while everyone else was barely holding it together. He pressed a button. And the Vrakken fleet stopped moving. Just stopped. Dead in space. All 3 ships. Engines active but going nowhere. The Vrakken commander sounded confused on the communications channel. Then angry. Then very, very concerned. Because those satellites Marcus had positioned weren't weapons. They were gravity field generators. Experimental. Barely functional. The kind of technology humans shouldn't have been able to build for another century at least. But there they were. Working. Holding 3 Vrakken warships in a gravitational cage they couldn't break free from. Marcus opened a communication channel. His face appeared on every Vrakken display. "Hi," he said, still in that ill-fitting suit. "My name is Marcus Webb. I'm nobody important. Just wanted to let you know that those gravity fields, they're powered by our sun. You can try to break free, but you'll burn through your fuel reserves in about 6 hours. After that, you'll drift. Forever. Or you can leave. Right now. And never come back." The Vrakken commander tried threatening. Then bargaining. Then threatening again. Marcus just waited. 5 hours and 47 minutes later, the Vrakken fleet retreated. Limping back toward faster-than-light jump points with barely enough fuel to make it home. Earth celebrated. Parties in every major city. Marcus Webb became the most famous human on the planet overnight. And I sat in my monitoring station, for eyes wide, trying to figure out what the hell I'd just witnessed. Because here's what bothered me. Those gravity generators. They required mathematics that humans hadn't developed yet. Engineering principles they shouldn't understand. Materials they couldn't manufacture. I checked the designs Marcus had submitted to the engineering teams. Then I checked my own databases. Keltharian databases. Advanced databases that contained information on technology from 1,000 different species. The designs were perfect. Too perfect. They incorporated solutions to problems humans didn't even know existed yet. Marcus Webb wasn't a genius. He was something else entirely. I made a decision. Another violation of protocol, but at this point, who's counting? I initiated direct contact. It took me 2 days to set up a secure meeting. I sent Marcus coordinates to my station using methods he wouldn't be able to trace. I half expected him not to show up. Regular humans don't just wander into the desert to meet mysterious aliens. But Marcus wasn't regular, was he? He arrived exactly on time. Driving some kind of primitive ground vehicle. He parked, got out, looked directly at my cloaked station, and waved. I dropped the cloak. His first words when he saw me. "Ha. 4 eyes. That's actually pretty cool. No fear. No shock. Just mild interest in my ocular configuration." "You knew I was here," I said. "Not a question." "For about 6 months, yeah." He leaned against his vehicle. "Nice cloaking field, by the way. Very efficient. Keltharian tech, right?" I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine surprise. "How do you know what I am?" Marcus smiled. That same not quite happy smile from the bunker. "Vorthan," he said, using my name even though I'd never told him. "Can I ask you something? In all your observations of humanity, did you ever wonder why we're so contradictory? Why we do things that don't make sense? Constantly. Right. Because you're looking at us wrong." He pushed off from the vehicle. "You're cataloging us like we're a single point in time. But humans? We're not points. We're lines. We only make sense when you see where we've been and where we're going. I didn't understand. I told him so. I know, Marcus said. You will though. Eventually. When the story ends. What story? He looked up at the stars. Thousands of them. Millions. More than any human should be able to comprehend. The one I'm not supposed to be in, he said quietly. And that's when I realized. Marcus Webb wasn't the background character I thought he was. He was something much, much stranger. 3 months after the Vrakken incident, I filed exactly 0 reports with the Galactic Council. You have to understand, this was unprecedented. I'd filed reports every single day for 300 cycles. Perfect record. Never missed one. Never even filed one late. Keltharians don't break patterns. It's not in our nature. But how do you report something you don't understand? How do you tell the council that a mid-level human researcher somehow knew classified information from 17 different species? How do you explain that he stopped an invasion using technology his planet shouldn't possess for another 100 years? You don't. You investigate. Marcus and I started meeting regularly. Always at my station. Always at night. He'd show up with terrible human coffee in disposable cups, sit on the sand, and talk. Except he rarely talked about himself. Mostly he asked questions. About me. About Keltharian culture. About the council. About the 47 worlds the Vrakken had destroyed. Did anyone try to help them? He asked one night, 3 weeks into our meetings. The council debated intervention, I said. Each time. But the laws are clear. We don't interfere with species below galactic threshold status. Even when they're being wiped out. Especially then. Interference creates dependency. Disrupts natural development. The council has seen what happens when advanced species play God with primitive ones. It never ends well. Marcus sipped his coffee. Made a face like it tasted bad. Drank more anyway. So you just watch. You document the extinction and file it away. Yes. That doesn't bother you. It did. More than I wanted to admit. More than any Keltharian observer was supposed to feel. My feelings are irrelevant, I said. The rules exist for reasons. Right. Rules. Marcus set down his cup. Can I tell you something, Vorthan? Something weird? Everything about you is weird. He laughed. Actually laughed. Fair. But this is different. I remember things I shouldn't remember. Places I've never been. Conversations I never had. Sometimes I know things are going to happen before they happen. Not like guessing. Like remembering forward. I felt my secondary eyelids close. Involuntary response to processing complex information. That's impossible. Temporal perception doesn't work that way. Even species with advanced neural architecture can't remember events that haven't occurred yet. I know, Marcus said quietly. But I do it anyway. He told me about the first time it happened. Age 7. Human years, not galactic standard. He'd been in school, taking some kind of primitive mathematics assessment, and suddenly he remembered the answers. Not remembered studying them. Remembered writing them. Remembered his teacher marking them correct. Remembered getting the results back 3 days later. All before he'd written a single answer. I thought I was going crazy, he said. Told my parents. They took me to doctors. Therapists. Everyone said it was probably anxiety or déjà vu or an overactive imagination. So I learned to stop talking about it. But it didn't stop happening. It got stronger. More frequent. More detailed. By the time he was 20, Marcus could remember entire conversations that wouldn't happen for weeks. He could remember research breakthroughs before they occurred. He could remember meeting people he'd never met. So when your warning came, he said, I didn't just read it. I remembered reading it. I remembered the Vrakken arriving. I remembered watching the invasion broadcasts. I remembered Earth losing. But Earth didn't lose. No. Because I also remembered building the gravity generators. Remembered the designs working. Remembered the Vrakken retreating. 2 different timelines. 2 different memories. Both real. Both true. Until one of them wasn't. I processed this for several long moments. My species is very good at logic. At finding patterns. At making sense of complex data. This made no sense. You're describing temporal paradox, I said. Reality doesn't support paradox. Events either happen or they don't. You can't remember 2 contradictory outcomes. And yet. Marcus spread his hands. Here we are. Here we are, I agreed. A thought occurred to me. Terrifying thought. The gravity generator designs. You remembered them from a future that didn't happen. From a timeline where Earth survived. Yep. But how could Earth survive in that timeline if you didn't build the generators until you remembered them from that survival? Marcus smiled. Now you're getting it. The loop doesn't make sense. It can't exist. But it does. I'm the answer and the question. The cause and the effect. I'm the plot hole. You're the what? He picked up his coffee again. You ever read human fiction, Vorthan? Stories? Novels? We're obsessed with them. And in every story, there are main characters and background characters. The main characters drive the plot. Background characters just exist to fill space. Make the world feel real. They serve coffee, guard doors, walk past important scenes. Nobody remembers them. I don't see what this has to do with temporal paradox. Everything. Marcus stood up, started pacing. See, I always felt like a background character. My whole life. Just this guy who happened to be present for interesting things but never central to them. I'd be at conferences where brilliant people made breakthroughs. I'd work on teams that invented important technology. I'd witness historical moments. But I was never the one making it happen. Just, there. And then I started remembering forward. Started seeing how the story was supposed to go. Earth gets invaded. Humanity fights back. Loses. Gets conquered. End of that story. Clean. Simple. Makes sense. He stopped pacing. Looked directly at me with both his inadequate 2 eyes. Except there was this one detail in those memories that didn't fit. This one background character who kept showing up in scenes where he shouldn't be. Some random researcher who somehow knew things. Who made suggestions that seemed to come from nowhere. Who was always just sort of, around, when important decisions got made. The temperature felt colder suddenly. You. Me. The background character. The one nobody was supposed to notice. But I noticed me. I saw myself in those memories. Saw myself failing to save Earth. Saw myself watching humanity fall. Saw myself being so absolutely useless that I might as well have been invisible. Marcus picked up a handful of sand. Let it run through his fingers. So I changed it. Used those memories. Built the generators. Stopped the Vrakken. Became important. Became central. Stepped out of the background and into the main plot. He looked at the sand falling from his hand. Except that created a new problem. What problem? If I save Earth, then Earth doesn't fall. If Earth doesn't fall, I don't have memories of it falling. If I don't have those memories, I don't build the generators. If I don't build the generators, Earth falls. And round we go. The snake eating its own tail. The paradox that shouldn't exist. I felt something that Keltharians rarely experience. Existential dread. You broke causality, I said. Yeah. Probably. Maybe. Who knows? Causality is weird. He sat back down. But here's the really fun part, Vorthan. The part that keeps me up at night. If I'm a paradox, if I'm the living embodiment of a timeline that shouldn't exist, then what happens when the story tries to fix itself? I don't understand. Stories have structure. Beginning, middle, end. Characters have arcs. Plots have resolution. You can't just have a random background character suddenly become crucial and expect the narrative to accept it. The story will correct. Find a way to make sense again. Put things back in order. Reality isn't a story, Marcus. Isn't it though? He leaned forward. Think about it. The council. Your rules. Your observations. You're treating the universe like it's a book you're reading. Recording the plot. Making sure nobody tears out pages or rewrites chapters. Your editors. Maintaining narrative consistency across galactic civilization. I started to argue. Stopped. Because he had a point. The council did approach universal events with a kind of narrative logic. Species rise. Species fall. Civilizations grow. Civilizations collapse. There was structure to it. Patterns. Stories being told across cosmic timescales. So what happens to you? I asked. If the story corrects. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was different. Tired. I fade, he said. Go back to being background. Become irrelevant again. Except this time, I'll remember being important. I'll remember saving Earth. I'll remember mattering. And then I'll watch myself stop mattering. Watch reality rewrite me back into obscurity. That's horrifying. Yeah. Little bit. We sat in silence. Above us, stars burned. Same stars humans had been watching for thousands of years. Same stars they'd dreamed about reaching. Same stars that contained species that had watched them, catalogued them, and decided they weren't worth saving. Unless, Marcus said suddenly. Unless what? Unless the story isn't over yet. Unless there's still a way to make the paradox make sense. To give the background character a reason for being in the foreground. He stood up. Brushed sand off his pants. The Vrakken are going to come back, Vorthan. Not tomorrow. Not next month. But eventually. They don't forgive humiliation. And when they come back, they'll bring more ships. Better weapons. They'll make sure Earth doesn't get lucky twice. I know, I said. I've been monitoring their communications. They're already planning a second wave. Right. So here's my question. What if stopping the first invasion wasn't the ending? What if it was the beginning? What if the background character was supposed to become important specifically so he could do something even more important later? Like what? Marcus smiled. That smile that meant he was about to suggest something insane. Like getting Earth into the Galactic Council. Like forcing the galaxy to acknowledge humanity as equals. Like making sure that when the Vrakken come back, Earth isn't alone. I stood up fast enough that all four eyes widened. That's impossible. Earth is nowhere near threshold status. The requirements are strict. Technology. Culture. Political unity. Humans don't qualify for any of it. Not yet, Marcus agreed. But they could. With help. With guidance. With someone who remembers how it's supposed to go. You want me to help you, I said. Not a question. I want you to help Earth. There's a difference. The Council will never approve. Interference with developing species is absolutely forbidden. I'd be stripped of my position. Exiled. Possibly prosecuted. I know. You're asking me to throw away everything I've built. My entire career. My reputation. Yep. For a species that can't even agree on basic resource distribution. That wages war over lines on maps. That still hasn't figured out how to stop destroying their own planet. That's the one. I turned away from him. Looked at my monitoring station. 300 cycles of perfect service. Perfect reports. Perfect adherence to protocol. A model observer. A Keltharian who followed every rule, filled every form, never questioned the system. And what had it gotten me? A front row seat to watch civilizations die while I took notes. The Vrakken will return in approximately 18 months, I said, still not looking at him. That's not enough time to get Earth to threshold status through normal development. No, Marcus agreed. It's not. We'd have to accelerate technological advancement. Cultural integration. Political cooperation. All while keeping the Council from noticing what we're doing. Probably impossible. Definitely impossible. I turned back to face him. When do we start? Marcus's smile changed. Became something genuine. Something hopeful. Now, he said. We start now. And that's how a background character and a rule-following observer decided to rewrite the ending. The Council is going to hate this. But you know what? Maybe some stories are worth breaking the rules for. Maybe some species deserve a chance even when the narrative says they shouldn't get one. Maybe sometimes the background character is exactly who needs to save the day. We'll find out soon enough. The Vrakken are coming. And this time, Earth will be ready. Not because of destiny. Not because of fate. Not because some cosmic author wrote it that way. But because a human who shouldn't matter decided he did. And a Keltharian who always followed the rules decided some things are more important than protocol. The story isn't over. It's just getting interesting.